10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. I'm Amanda with DevExpress. Good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to Mobile Reporting with DevExpress MAUI. I am here with Areg. Areg, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent today. Yeah, I
Amazing.
mean, people said it was impossible. They said that, DevExpress does reports, but, you got to be on a Windows machine. You got to be on a full laptop or a full desktop to get the
Mm-hmm.
reporting experience. And people are used to that in browsers, but I'm here to tell you today that actually on Android, on iOS, even on, dare I say it, Mac OS, you could use DevExpress reports. And we're going to
Wow.
delve into those dark arts today.
Perfect.
so
Okay, let's do it.
so if you've actually if you've gone to the documentation where we host the documentation having to do with XtraReports, our reporting libraries, you probably have seen kind of this overview on the left-hand side change over the last few years as we've added support for different platforms, and we've kind of reorganized the idea of kind of what does cross-platform reporting mean. The really important topic, I think, in all of our documentation is basically if you search for XtraReport members, you get the class members of what an XtraReport is. So the reason I constantly turn this page is because I can never remember which NuGet package I actually do need. And our handy dandy website makes it actually pretty trivial to figure that out. So on our website, we have a collection of links from documentation that links back to this NuGet package manager that we have online. And this package manager tells me apparently the package I need is called DevExpress Reporting Core, and which is great because I would never be able to remember it otherwise. So the point is that we're going to actually head into building a .NET MAUI application, and then we're going to try to inject our reporting tools into it. And I mentioned it before, that kind of part of what has to happen in non-Windows environments is we have to use drawing libraries other than system drawing. System drawing, if you remember it, it's the old school drawing libraries back in the GDI WinForms days, but those things don't really exist in non-Windows environments because you need things like font support, and you need to be able to render without system drawing. And Long story short, Microsoft has a solution. It's called Skia Sharp. So if we Google for Skia Sharp, I think we'll find something. So yeah, Skia Sharp. It has a package, but basically, as much rendering as possible needs to pass through Skia Sharp if you want to do it in a completely cross-platform manner. So if you're doing a workload, if you're running a workload, uh, where you're generating a report and you want to generate it in a Linux environment, whether that be for what we're doing today, or whether if it's for like a web app, you definitely want to use Skia Sharp wherever you can. You want to use this new render library. And I just to reiterate, and just to give you some sense of safety, we do actually support this render engine as well. So if you go to devexpress.com, community.devexpress.com, and if you search for Skia, so if I go here, uh, let me go to community.devexpress.com. This is the homepage of our blogs. And if I go here into, I believe, our render libraries, probably a few blog posts back, but the point is that here you can see our conclusions based on what experiments we ran in the new render engine and kind of what we kind of expect to see in terms of differences. Even before I get to this, I can tell you what the um, differences are. The differences are actually very, very minimal in the sense that really some white space some padding should be increased or decreased, but really there really shouldn't be too much of a difference in terms of what you actually see on your screen using the new reporting engine. So if you can, give the new reporting engine a spin. If you're, building a greenfield project, you don't really need to worry about maintaining the old approach to building reports. So it's not so much a worry for you. You can kind of head into this with no real concerns. But if you have to maintain existing applications or existing reports, you may want to just take a quick look at this blog post we wrote where we explain kind of the difference. And
Yeah, I
let
was
me
gonna
use
say, is there a search?
yeah, let me go ahead and go into our let me go here and head into community.devexpress.com.
Also, while you've been doing this, I posted our question for attendees of what is your mobile experience? Are you using mobile, developing for mobile? Not yet, but you want to, or you're just here for the laughs?
So this is actually the article I really wanted to touch on because we have a nice set of images that showcase exactly what I'm talking about. So if you look for Skia on our blogs, you'll find this. But basically, and this was posted at the end of the previous year, so not 2023 but 2022. So we've kind of been developing this since then too. So this is a change that came into effect with .NET 6, by the way. And basically, like I said, it's downstream of what Microsoft did with system drawing. So you see the old engine on the left and the new engine on the right. So there's very little difference. If you really pay attention, you can notice there's some font aliasing differences, some font kerning differences. But basically, these are differences that you're not really going to notice if you're building a report from scratch. But if you, but if you're basically building a new or sorry, if you're comparing reports against one another, there's going to be a small difference. Enough so that basically they're not going to be pixel perfect. Maybe you're going to have two lines instead of one in some cases, which is a big difference. But the point being is that I recommend giving this a try, especially if you're building cross-platform. Anyway, my point is that we can head right now into kind of building a .NET MAUI reporting application. So first, let's take a look at what sort of options I have. So if I go into my new project templates and I look at what the MAUI options look like for me, we can get some sense. So we have a bunch of different options for different types of entities I can create. Really, the first one is what we're going to focus on today. You'll see that there's also something called MAUI-DX. It's actually our free offer for MAUI. So just so you know about that, if I go to, again, a search engine and I type in DevExpress free offers, you see all of our free offers. And that's where that MAUI offer exists. So if you go here, these are the .NET MAUI controls. And if you go to the place where there are the free NuGet packages, so NuGet.org, so this is the free source of publicly available NuGet packages. If I go to DevExpress MAUI here, I think you'll see the project template that we already have. So this is the project template that you get for free. You don't have to be a paying customer. Maybe that's an unwise choice of ours to just sell away the family farm for nothing. But hey, we're really nice guys. So this is available to you and everyone else that is interested in it. And we're actually not going to be uh, using this right now. We're going to be using the reporting bits that you actually need to pay to use. And that's not, to say something about licensing or about to upsell here. This is actually that's just how the cookie crumbled in this case. And it turned out that uh, since we're not really talking about MAUI UI controls, we're more so talking about integrating reports into the MAUI platform. This first MAUI platform is what we're interested in, and then we'll talk about multi-platform and about moving forward from there. So I'm going to go ahead and create this new project based on this MAUI template in this case. And let's say I'm going to call this a MAUI cast. And I think that I don't need to provide anything else. And I'm going to go into this MAUI cast and I'm going to fire up my favorite IDE. And this actually is somewhat important. You can follow along. in Windows or in any other platform that is Linux if you'd like. But what I'm doing today is I'm doing things in VS Code. So it's about as cross-platform as you could hope for it to be. You could do the same things, I guess, in Visual Studio. Actually, you could. It's just that, I mean, you're not really required to. You have this exact same environment available to you in Windows, so there's no harm in you know following and reproducing these steps. A few things that are worth mentioning is that I actually did install some really great extensions that really, if you're not using, you're really putting yourself at a big disadvantage. So this first one is, um, well, it's not showing up right now, but it's a C Sharp Dev Kit plus .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI is what's showing on my screen right now. So .NET MAUI is a great extension. You would probably guess you need it, and yes, you do actually. It's great to have it because in by default in VS Code, you get this sort of file-based view of the project that isn't very nice if you're used to Visual Studio. If you notice, like the XAML files and the code behind files are two different rows. They're not associated with each other. There's no idea. VS Code doesn't know how these are related. It doesn't know that the CS proj is a project file. It's kind of a mess. But if I collapse this and I expand this thing called the Solution Explorer, this is what the Maui extension gives me. So actually, I have an idea of kind of my project file, and I even get an organized set of dependencies. So this file is being parsed and generating this tree here for me. And also, like I said, I get the code behind files organized under the XAML definitions, which I think is great. Um, so I highly recommend you do have the Maui extension and you try to use the Solution Explorer as often as you can, because it's one of the great things about having Visual Studio proper is you get the Solution Explorer, but now the great thing is you get the Solution Explorer within VS Code. So it's a great way to take a lot of cognitive burden off your mind when you're in VS Code. You don't have to think solely about, well, I don't the IDE is dumb. It doesn't have an idea what my project is, and I have to kind of grapple with it. Well, not so much anymore. The other thing which I am using, which you probably did notice down here, because my simulator options are down here, is this may look a little strange to you, and the reason it may is because I'm using a extension called .NET Meteor, which actually one of our fellows, Nikita, developed. And the idea is that .NET Meteor gives you a few nice functionalities in VS Code that really are kind of de rigueur in Visual Studio. So that includes things like for years now, Microsoft's been pushing in all the XAML platforms hot reload, and it hasn't been as readily available in VS Code. Well, with this in VS Code, you do get hot reload in .NET MAUI, and we will be going over that. You also get some fun little features as well, like you get ability. Well, you should get ability to set breakpoints. That's kind of like expected, but you also get ability to set breakpoints in more complicated expressions, like link expressions, where it's you don't set a you don't set a breakpoint necessarily on a line. It may be a column-based breakpoint, and all those things are supported. So, and the other nice thing is these simulator options. So I get that little bar down there. But before we head into that, to actually get this working and functioning, let's actually go into our project file. And actually, I don't really want to do multi-platform as much today. So I'm not going to be doing multi-targeting. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go in my target frameworks and just focus on what I get in Android. So I'm going to go ahead and remove both the iOS version and the Mac Catalyst version so I could bring in native Android assets today without there being any real complaints on part of NuGet restoring my project. Um, Other thing is I do want to actually enable the hot reload. And so now that I'm in this project file, I want to actually go ahead and basically pull in this .NET Meteor extension and allow it to, do hot reload. So let me maybe put it as the first line in my item group here. So I'm going to go ahead and add, uh, I think I have to add a package reference, it looks like. And it's again called .NET Meteor. So it's a .NET Meteor, I believe, and it's the hot reload plugin specifically. And with this, we should be able to make changes in our XAML and to see them live updated. So this is kind of, like I said, a thing that you're maybe used to at this point if you're a longtime XAML developer. So if you've been using WinUI or if you've been using WPF, it's kind of like a thing that has been there for a while. And really what it's copying is the sort of behavior you get in modern web frameworks. So modern web frameworks, you get a running local dev server that you're basically constantly using to read updates from your file system. So you're making changes on your file system, and the web server is actually reading those changes. So you're not really relying on designers or on a big fat IDE like Visual Studio to re-render the preview version of what's going on in your app. And to be honest, the reason for that is designers are kind of uh, a terrible double-edged sword in the sense that it's not Microsoft's fault. Designers everywhere, including in Xcode, are just really flaky. They just tend to explode and just give up and choke on the changes that you send them. But yeah, if you can move that to runtime, it's always a much better experience. So if you're doing complex bindings and definitions and changes to your XAML, all those things become a lot easier once you start relying on hot reload versus relying solely on a visual representation in your IDE of the visual tree. And then the final thing that we have to do to make sure hot reload actually works is here this directive where it's mentioned if debug add the logging. We actually want to add one other thing, which is this hot reload. So it's builder dot, I believe, enable hot reload. So now that I've actually ran this line as well, we should have hot reload. And another great thing is that even though VS Code kind of doesn't really bill itself as a IDE, it kind of is an IDE in the sense that I type this line in and I automatically have this first line added in for me. So the using got added in automatically, which is to be expected in an IDE, but in a text editor, it's not really. You don't really take anything for granted in a text editor. So it's great that this VS Code has kind of developed since 2015 into like an all-purpose Swiss Army knife for every platform and everything you could possibly want, and it's so much easier than everything else. I mean, I say this as a Emacs user, so I like hurting myself. Basically, I like complications, and I've kind of given up using Emacs because it's so dang easy to just use VS Code. There's no real reason for me to ever fire up Emacs again. So, I mean, I really like this approach, to be honest. So, I just to kind of narrate what I just did, I clicked down here on this .NET Meteor bar that I get. So I have to make sure that I have this extension here to display the status bar. So it's the .NET Meteor extension. And I get a bunch of simulators I've installed. And this was a saga in itself because it's kind of like the uh, getting the Android SDK working from Android Studio, getting the Xcode libraries in, and getting every other simulator to recognize what's going on and play nice. It's going to be a challenge. So you're going to get lots of warnings in the console until you finally take the right steps. But to be honest, I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think that you just have to keep chugging along until the console stops complaining at you, and you accept whatever license terms it is, and you have whatever version of the Android SDK you need. So I think I have Android SDK Platform Tools 34. I think that's it, and it's some weird Android name designation like upside down cake or something like that. I think we're like
What?
I used to complain, Amanda, for years that that VCL, that Embarcadero used to call
Oh,
their IDEs like Rio and Tokyo and obscure
yeah.
city name, just like throwing obscure city names. And then
Sheboygan.
I dealt with Android and I realized, oh my God, this is like a cookie crumble cake, and this is gummy bear, and this is, oh my gosh, what? These are version names. Yeah, unfortunately. I'm never going to complain about Microsoft and version names again. So I picked basically a simulator here, Pixel, that actually matches what I'm building. So the target framework, again, I set this to .NET 8 Android. And now if I just press F5, it should just work. The only caveat being that it's going to take a little bit of time to build for the very first time. So not now. Let me my keyboard hotkeys do not want to comply, but I clicked on run debug instead of actually using the keyboard hotkeys. And now it gives me some options about which debugger to run. The debugger to run in my case, I'm be running today. You can do otherwise, but I'm picking .NET Meteor. And the reasons that I've already gone ahead and set it up and it works really well. I have the little bar at the bottom that tells me it's going to run inside a pixel. So let's do .NET Meteor in this case, and it's executing the build tasks. And you can trigger these on console by setting the same command. So you can do a .NET build and then pass in a P flag for platform, and you could pass in task for build and run. Um, but VS Code does all this stuff for me. I don't have to worry about it, and it also attaches a debugger. My debugger here is the .NET Meteor debugger, which, like I said, is great, and also has things like hot reload. I actually have to go into a simulator, which is this thing here. It's going to take a little bit of time to, at this point, load into the Android app that we just kind of built from scratch. But just again to go back into the XAML that actually we're going to get back. So we're going to get this thing that's going to be a robot, and it's going to say the canonical text, which is "Hello World," just to greet us. And there's not really much you can do with the first one. Unfortunately, it takes some time. It's doing quite a lot of work to interpret everything in terms of Java and Android and bringing in Maui assets into the project. So there's quite a lot that's happening behind the scenes. So it's amazing, really. It works at all. But once we get up and running, this simulator is going to be updating, and it just succeeded. There's actually one step past this, but once the simulator there, it's firing up right now. It's loading up the app. The simulator starts loading up the this app we are talking about, and we should have the ability to do things like hot reload. So basically, this hello world text is kind of what we're looking at in two different views. In the label here on the right hand side, and actually live in this application, this Maui app, which doesn't have DevExpress in it yet. It's just standard Maui targeting Android. So if I go in here and I say like something else like, hello, let's say universe, why not one-upsmanship, and I'll save the file. I just saved it, and I immediately, you notice it says hello universe. Other great thing is that I can actually start defining new styles as well. So if I go into a solution explorer, you can see that there is this idea um, of different fonts that I've already added, or really, I don't want to take credit here. The Maui template has added them for me. So these two different fonts, and the file names are given here, the TTF files, but the common names are given here. So the common names are Open Sans regular and Open Sans semi-bold. So I'm assuming we're using Open Sans regular here because it looks pretty regular to me. But we can, start proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're actually using live reload. So hot reload, sorry, not live reload. And we'll load in a new font family from, the fonts that are loaded into this. So I believe it was called Open Sans Semi Bold. And I think I might have to get the name exactly right. So let's check what that is. Open Sans Semi Bold. I I missed that one. So the let's redo that, and let's go ahead and make this a lowercase v, lowercase b, and I don't know if you caught that, but this got a little bit bolded because it's semi-bold. It's not really bold; it's semi-bold. Let's go a step further, actually, and let's spice up the app
Yeah,
because
baby.
Amanda was bringing up boy bands. Now I'm like bringing up the Spice Girls. So we're going like fully 90s right now. So spice up your life. We're gonna go ahead and slap a font on this. So let's go ahead and bring in something kind of interesting. And to me, I don't want to like follow some tutorial. I want to actually, you know, do something a little bit more personal. And really, I think there's nothing more classy than a nice Comic Sans font. And like we're gonna
No.
go ahead and apply a Comic Sans font. This is what the people want. So it's called Comic Sans.
What
It's
people?
a it's a mono. Yeah, everyone's just writing to me every day asking for Comic Sans. So I mean, what
Mm.
can I say? Uh, so let me go ahead and I don't want to touch this folder, but I do want to get this font definition, Comic Sans. Um, so let's go ahead and get this font file, and I'm gonna go ahead and once I'm in the terminal right now. I think I want the latest version of this font file. I don't think I want to take chances with potential issues they had along the way. So I'm gonna take Comic Sans, and I believe I have to. It's called Comic Sans 2, and I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to my project, which I believe, what was it called again? It was called Maui Cast One. Wow, how could I have guessed? So Maui Cast One, and really, if I want to bring in some raw resources, Maui assets, this is kind of why I'm bringing this up as the example because it's kind of easy to bring in a font, whereas other assets a little bit more difficult. Uh, you'll notice that there's a folder here called resources. Inside of resources, we have a bunch of different options. Raw is actually what you're typically going to be using, but we're going to be bringing in this thing into the fonts directory. So we're going to be targeting or placing things into fonts. And once I've gone ahead and copied here, I've actually, you see Comic Sans 2 is magically available here. And I'm going to go ahead and actually bring it into my. I have to actually not do hot reload for this part because I do actually need to change something that isn't just markup. So we have to get the debugger to stop. But I'm gonna go ahead and go into my Maui program, and I'm gonna kind of um, use the approach that kind of they kind of recommend, or by example, kind of I probably should follow it. I'm gonna go ahead and really starting from the way that semi-bold was added, I'm gonna add in my own little font, and we're gonna go ahead and change it live to give some sense of kind of how the exciting world of how .NET Meteor development happens, or how our .NET Meteor extension works in Maui. And I'm going to give it a nice short name of, let's say, Comic Sans. And I hope I remember that it has two N's. Yes, Comic Sans. That's how you spell it. Great. Um, and I'm going to go back and I'm gonna go back into my little label and I'm gonna start running and debugging again. This time it should be a little bit more quick to build up the application because there's only the change to my Maui program file, no other real changes here, and it's gonna be bundled up and run on my emulator. And this emulator is also available to you, doesn't really depend on having Mac OS. In fact, you could technically use Windows and develop on iOS. The only thing you have to do is that it's a little bit of a painful process where you have to negotiate an SSH connection to your Mac OS box. So we're kind of circumventing all that and sidestepping it by just being on Mac OS in the first place. Secondly, I'm kind of like it's my daily driver anyway, so it doesn't really hurt. I don't really I don't really believe something is cross-platform unless I see it running outside of Windows. That's my personal take anyway, because I don't know what it's picking up from the global assembly cache, or potentially what it's doing with a fallback version of .NET Standard or some. I don't really know what's going on. I mean, I don't think anyone does until you deploy to production. So the nice thing is having a machine that does not play nice super traditionally with Mac with .NET is that if it works on like an environment like Linux or a hostile environment like Mac OS, okay, I built something that's resilient. So Okay, so now it's fired up, and now I think that I should have access to my nice little Comic Sans font. So it's a Maui asset now in the project.
Great.
So let's do Comic Sans, and we will find out together if this save is gonna pull up. Uh, the font looks like we had some difficulties using. We have a problem. Comic Sans. Never know if I spelled it right. I might have to also uh, cut it some slack and not use a name with for the file with spaces in it, just because I don't know when this gets translated between uh, versions, platform versions, Android and Windows, what really necessarily happens with escaping the spaces. So let's go ahead and give that one try. It's not super important. It was more so important that we wanted to kind of explain what's happening with hot reload in this application. But let's go ahead and rename this Comic Shans in our case, and then let's also go ahead and here uh, let's replicate that name so that we can actually pick up the file. And I believe this is the only place that there's a font reference. And we, inside the project file itself, there should be some reference to Maui assets, but I don't think that the whole font. Yeah, I saw the fonts. So the fonts that are mentioned, so Maui fonts are referenced here. Resources, fonts, everything, because we wildcarded it, or they wildcarded it. So we should not have an issue whatsoever at this point. Comic Shans 2.ttf, Comic Shans, and we'll give it one more try before we move on. So let's go ahead and go back into our debugger. And again, the .NET Meteor debugger, because .NET Meteor is giving us things like hot reload and this great little bar here. This has saved me so many times in that one of the most, I think, difficult things about Maui development is its multi-platform. So multi-targeting is done in Maui in a somewhat strange way compared to other technologies because Maui kind of comes directly from Xamarin and the Xamarin way of kind of handling what project is responsible for. So typically in the .NET world, we're used to like having a solution with a ton of projects in it that have different targets. So in XAF, for example, if you're used to XAF, our middleware layer, we do have like a solution layer, or we have a solution and we have projects within it, and that those projects are things like the the web version of the project, the core version, the desktop version. Whereas in Maui, you have one project that's responsible for multi-targeting, and that's why having it very much in your face that hey, my debugger is going to be using Pixel, and it's down here, and you could pick a device, and it's all much really this level of being explicit and in your face is kind of really necessary if really everything's going to be thrown into the same project. So I mean, without this, I don't think it would be possible to be very efficient. Oh, and it worked. The only nice or not so nice thing was that I wasn't able to show this with hot reload, but I'll prove again that we actually do have hot reload. So if I were to get rid of this line and get back the original or the default style, the default style looks like this, and then my I think beautified version of this label looks like this. I think this is beautified. This is Comic Sans, folks. So you could make use of Comic Sans where they said that Comic Sans couldn't go. So you could write your code in Comic Sans. No one will know because no one sees it in the repository,
Why
so no
is
one
it
else knows.
called Comic Shans?
I'm not really sure.
Is it
All
like
I
the
know is that
Berenstain Bears like parallel universe thing, or like what's
you know
happening
about
here?
that theory, I guess, but no, I don't think that this is one of those Mandela effects. This is actually like everyone and their brother has tried to kind of take Comic Sans and to force it into being a usable font. And the
Okay.
main thing that prevents it is that Comic Sans does not like being monospace, which is what this font is. So that's why we needed Comic Sans. People were clamoring for Comic Sans because they needed a monospace version of Comic Sans, and that's what it's doing. I'm not
Got
sure
it.
why it's
Got
maybe
it.
it's a
Got it.
sham. Maybe that's the reference why it's
Okay.
Comic Shan. But anyway, there are there's actually a few different variants. I think Comic Sans is the best Comic Sans variant. Um, I think I actually have it running on Visual Studio in Windows, but it should tell you how often I fire up Windows that I'm kind of like I think I have it there. But anyway, so a few things we probably want to go ahead and do is we want to actually go into this event handler, which is the click me, and change it from incrementing the counter, which is kind of like the standard thing that these applications do. Uh, change it um, from incrementing the counter to basically generating a report and giving us the option of getting the report. So if I go into the code behind here, I get this counter, and if my clicks are being picked up, maybe I just verify. Yes, I am. Maybe maybe it's the fact that I have too many applications inside of this little poor VM. But anyway, it's not a problem. We'll just play with it and keep going. So the point is that I want to actually change this handler and have it actually load up a report. Now, as you could probably guess, you can't just use our reporting library without bringing in the reporting controls themselves. So the big question here is, do I have a .NET NuGet package for this? So let me go into my terminal, my handy dandy terminal in VS Code, and see what sort of packages I do actually have. So I'm going to go .NET list package to always get an up-to-date view of my packages in this particular project. And looks like I do have .NET Meteor and I have the standard MAUI. I actually do need to make sure, I alluded to this earlier, but if you go into, and now I can't find it, but if you go into uh, the documentation for XtraReport, you'll notice that we mentioned what NuGet package you need. You need DevExpress Reporting Core. So DevExpress Reporting Core is what I'll have to bring in. And we also, I think, mentioned what dependencies it's going to bring in. So you don't have to bring in these by name. We do this for you. But you're going to have to bring in DevExpress Reporting Core. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in DevExpress Reporting Core. So DevExpress.NET add package, and it's DevExpress Reporting Core. And another thing that I probably should be bringing in is I mentioned that this is a cross-platform reporting task, so we can't really use system drawing here. After .NET 6, it's not really how you do things. Instead, we have a new Skia engine. So we're going to add that. So we're going to add the package for DevExpress.drawing.skia. And this is also, so this is the second dependency we're adding in. And while we're at it, we'll add kind of, I think, a few other dependencies as well, so that you can not just have reports, but you could generate PDFs. Already we're going to have reports. So for example, if I go here and I start by creating a new extra report, like this extra report just show up now in my IntelliSense. So I do actually have extra reports functioning in this environment because I have kind of the basic skeleton or setup, and I believe that I can go ahead and set my bands collection, um, and I think if I remember correctly, um, every report kind of, if we're gonna rely on this, so I might as well just have it at the very top. The idea is that I'm gonna call this, like, I think, sample report, and that's gonna be the name and the title. So I'm gonna basically hard code the name here so that I have it. I could pick it up later. But I'm getting all the properties that you kind of know and love from, doing reporting with our libraries. But every report has a collection of bands. I need to add bands now. So typically, you can kind of get away without knowing this because you could do this all visually, but we're doing this in code to kind of showcase that, hey, is it possible or not to use a report, or is it possible to build a report and bring it into an Android phone app? And so that's why I'm kind of building this by hand. So the kind of the base type of band that you have access to that maps to each record in your query is called a detail band. And I'm gonna be bringing in a detail band with, let's say, a some sort of basic control in its controls collection, and that control is going to be like, let's say, a XR label. So just one XR label, and that XR label, XR control, I think is a abstract based class, so not so useful to me. But an XR label would be useful because an XR label is going to show me something, and I'm going to have like this hello from the reporting world, let's say. So we're going to have a report that has this. But like I said, the NuGet packages we added so far into this project let us actually use XtraReports, but we can't actually render cross-platform in a meaningful way. We have our render libraries, but we don't have like the core libraries outside of DevExpress. So let's add them as well. So we're gonna have to add a few more packages. So there is Skia with its own support, which is Skia Sharp. We're gonna also have to add some native assets um, for Android as well. So it's kind of a long mouthful, but Native Assets.android. And if we were doing this iOS, we're not. But if we were, we would write iOS instead. But we're going to do Android today. So Skia Sharp. Sorry, I have to actually give this a actual command because I'm just kind of just giving it the name of a package otherwise. Um, and then we want some additional functionality or helpers inside of our environment for font support. So actually, that's something called Harf Buzz. It's a kind of strange name for a package, but it is what it is. So it's called Harf Buzz. So
Harf buzz?
yeah, unfortunately, we are just really bad at
We are
naming things as
really
developers.
having some odd.
Yeah, I know. This is it's getting a little scary, I know, but bear with me here. I think it's gonna we're getting to the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm gonna go ahead and also add a native assets for HarfBuzz. So it's kind of again in a really long namespace. It's HarfBuzz Sharp, native assets, and Android. So I need these for font support basically, or at least I think I need them for font support. To be honest, there are so many dependencies floating around, so many different platforms that it's sometimes I'm at a loss as to wait, what was that dependency for and why? Forgot. Um, but unfortunately, that's kind of the miracle of it working is kind of the first amazing step that hey, at least I have a project that I can like target three different operating systems with. It's kind of cool in itself. We forget. I'm gonna actually want to pull in this. I believe if I go and take this report, yeah, I'm calling it rep. I want to actually probably uh, create the document. So I'm gonna call this thing called creatively create document, and I'm gonna call the async method, the asynchronous version of it. And it looks like the asynchronous method or the asynchronous version. And let me let me get my definition of this. Go to definition. Hopefully I can pull it up. It's expecting a cancellation token, and I don't know what the default cancellation token does, but I'd rather just give it an explicit value. So I'm gonna go ahead and generate a token. So I'm gonna get a token, and it's a cancellation token that basically coordinates what's happening between multiple asynchronous tasks. And nowadays, everything in the world is asynchronous. Everything in Blazor and in ASP.NET Core is asynchronous. So kind of we're paying homage to that because it kind of sucks when things are not asynchronous. And we're going to even take it another step further. Since we're going to be writing code with awaits, we might as well also uh, support that by making this an async method. So we're going to make this an async handler so that we can actually have a wait here in different places. Um, and I'm going to probably have my wait here. And then I'm going to also go ahead and call the functionality to create the PDF, and we're gonna have to fish the PDF out of the phone. So it's kind of a little where it gets a little scary because the big question is, well, it's going to be difficult to access the file system, but fortunately, we can find this based on some helpers that we have. So we have something called the app data directory, which is available to us, and it's actually gonna. I don't know if in web we have it here, but it's not listed here on the top level of the project. But if I go in my file system here, I go into it's implemented as a singleton, but I go to the app data directory, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it the name of the file that really it should find the report in when I export it, or I should save it as. I'm going to save it as creatively under the name that I mentioned. We're going to be hard coding, and we did. It's called sample report. So this is that name, and all files typically have an extension outside of the Unix world. So we're going to go ahead and give this an extension of, as you would guess, a PDF file has a .pdf extension, and we're going to want to end this expression. So and give you some more space so you can actually see everything I've written as I've written it. And then once I've gone ahead and done that, I actually want to give a little pop-up indicator that, hey, that file is available to do something with, and you could, open this inside of another, perhaps PDF viewer, or inside of an app for messaging to send PDFs, or you could print the PDF. Those are all options available to you. So we're going to go ahead and uh, basically execute a generic handler right now. And that generic handler is going to basically give us a share file request. And that share file request is here, and I'm passing into it kind of the details of what this file is going to be like. So let's get this pop-up out of the way so I can see my screen. And the share file request is going to have some sort of caption, and the caption is going to be like share the PDF. And the file that's actually going to be sharing here in this case is the file I just saved to. And that file is this thing here. So we're going to go ahead and pass in the file. And that file is, we have to wrap it in share file, but we're going to go ahead and give it the full path designation that we need. And again, it lives in the thing called the app data directory. So I need to access the file system current singleton. So file system current, and it's called the app data directory. And then again, the name of that file is just the name of the report with the extension at the end of the file type that I'm using. And this is the end of that expression. So this should go ahead and run. We'll also go ahead and set a breakpoint here just to make sure that we actually do get to this point, because I did notice there was a little bit of strange behavior that when I was clicking on the button originally, I wasn't sure what responses I was getting back. So let me go back into my debugger and let me hit this breakpoint live in the application. So basically we're supposed to get all the way down here. And what we're doing again is we're creating a cancellation token. And let me open my emulator too while I'm at it. Emulator takes a while to heat up. But I'm creating a cancellation token. taking the sample report I created in code. I'm going ahead and I'm actually saving it as a PDF file in this place called the app data directory. So I need to know where that is, and I gotta add the fact that I'm saving it as a given file name. And then what I'm doing is, as soon as I save it, I'm pulling up the operating system uh, share file request options to actually do something with that file. So I could, for example, message someone and attach the file, or I could write an email and attach it, or I could print the file with any local network accessible printers. So that those are all options that are available to me. So it's probably going to. So essentially, this first step is what we're on right now. We're building right now, and then it's going to be running it. So we're not really quite at 50% in terms of the process. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of, press the run button and wait a long time. And that's unfortunately just kind of like the name of the game in mobile. That it's not really any different in Xcode. It's not really any better anywhere else. So this is unfortunately not. Believe me, or take my word for it. This is kind of the best that we can kind of do. And we did hit the breakpoint, so our code does work. Everything does work, and we're gonna like play by the seat of our pants, and we're just gonna like continue. We're not even gonna like go line by line. We're just gonna try to run the whole thing. And
Crazy.
oh my god, it happened, Amanda. We actually generated the file, and we're gonna print it. People
What?
said that printers don't work, but we're gonna like
They
test that
never
assumption right
work.
now. Do printers actually
Can
work?
somebody
We
build a
will.
printer that works?
Yeah, we're gonna hit print, and I don't know what printers I have access to, especially on a phone that's an emulated phone. So this is my printer from like decades ago,
College?
and it doesn't exist right now. I don't know why it's giving it as the option. I'll save this as a PDF, but you'll notice that if I do save this PDF, firstly, it says hello from the reporting world. It's really not zoomed in, so I can't really. Maybe I gotta like look at my zoom controls, but I'll save this. So and forgive me, folks. I just kind of learned how to use phones, so if I'm kind of bad at this, it's not really a reflection of the platform. It's that like I honestly am like people use phones. I don't get it. Like I'm used to like the Moto Razors and things like that. So I'm just like, what?
Mm.
What is this? And apparently, you click this square and you can kind of like see the menu and all the apps. But I want to actually look at the file system, and maybe there's like an option to see files. Oh, there it is. It's called files, and it was in a folder called downloads. That's where I saved it, and it's this download file with a number. So that's where I saved it. And let's see if I can actually zoom in. This is fine, not zoom, but let's see if we have a zoom option. So zoom,
Oh,
zoom, zoom a bunch, or even better, I think I could even, if I'm not mistaken, I can just. Oh well, looks like it's forced at a given resolution. But what I can do, because I really want to verify that. Whoa, okay. So I think like that was a trick that I
oh,
have to actually like. It's kind of distorted, but let's zoom back out and let me click on the zoom button, and I want to give this one more try. Android
oh.
does not really want to comply here. Let's actually verify what this text says. Um,
I really want to just take my fingers and like, you know,
well, the thing
pinch
is, I
and
technically don't have fingers either. I'm just doing this with a mouse. And
oh,
okay, this is
there it
probably
is.
the best we're going to get with my caveman approach to kind of using phones. Sorry, I don't know how to use phones, but I hope this text isn't too small for those watching this on, the live stream, but it says hello from the reporting world. So
I can read
our
it.
application generates PDFs, and this is kind of where I wanted to kind of leave things off. And the reason is that if you've noticed, we've kind of started with the base MAUI. We haven't used DevExpress MAUI. So the button here in this case is the the stock button you get in MAUI. So it's not our editor, it's not our button. Um, and you know, the only thing that's DevExpress here is when you click on this, DevExpress does all the heavy lifting to generate a report. Um, the
Nice.
thing is that actually we're gonna dig deeper into bringing in all the niceness, which is the report viewer, the document viewer, the report designer. You're gonna have all those things accessible to you. They're actually capabilities, but they're not something that you can do in stock standard Maui. You have to use Maui hybrid. That is, you have to use a Blazor web view in your main page, and that Blazor web view is going to be using our Blazor controls. So we could use our Blazor reporting libraries to generate all of that. And there really is no way around that. But since it's so much off left field compared to kind of where you start with this template, and it's actually a bit more complicated than what we showed today, I think it's worth going over the basics so we get some sort of ground line, some sort of baseline in terms of how does Maui work, what can we expect it to do, what sort of extensions am I using, where's my IDE. So we've answered all those questions. The only thing that's kind of basic but also worth mentioning is that in the same way we brought in stuff into the fonts, so we brought Comic Sans into the app. We did not pay for it. It's free. But we could also bring in any other type of file by putting it in this raw directory. And so if you have a regex report definition, you could bring in as well. And we may do that next time. But essentially, the idea is that um, to actually take this a step further and to have a UI for the report builder, we need to actually have a Blazor web view. And that's not quite the same in the sense that, as you know, the project template is going to be different. We're going to basically start with a different project template. And also, we're not going to be um, doing everything in non-web technologies. We're going to be using Blazor, and we're going to be using Razor pages, and we're going to be using imports, and these are kind of things that you're not really necessarily expecting to be using if you're a Maui developer. Maybe it is, I don't know, but as a Maui developer, I wouldn't expect it. I would expect that, hey, I'm just a dyed in the wool WPF guy. Keep that web stuff away from me. That's what I'd be expecting. But yeah, we'll get to that. So that's kind of all she wrote, Amanda. But honestly, I think we have a lot of excitement coming down the way because we're going to get a full reporting suite working within this context.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, I did want to say, Arg, that we did get a comment from Nikita Romanoff saying hi
Oh,
from the .NET Meteor creator.
oh yeah. Yeah, that's like I said, Nikita is the guy that basically, if I can scroll down to it, this is the originator of .NET Meteor, and we're kind of starstruck here.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're actually showcasing .NET Meteor, and the guy, uncoordinated, came in and started talking about .NET Meteor. It's amazing. I did not plant him, folks. It's just that that's just how it turned out. I actually think it's a great plugin, to be honest, because handling these extensions is a little bit of a pain. And let's do something that people generally say you shouldn't be doing, which is let's actually improvise a bit and do something a little live. So I know that Amanda hates it when I do this, but let's actually take it another step further and let's just kind of I really want to take Donna Meteor out for a spin and prove that it has lots of emulators. So instead of doing Android or targeting Android, I'm going to go ahead and target Mac Catalyst. But my app's not really built for Mac Catalyst. So I don't know if this is a good idea or not. So, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I don't know what good ideas are. So Mac Catalyst. So
Wow.
for those of you at home that are maybe wondering what is Mac Catalyst, what's going on, Mac Catalyst is how in iOS you can build basically Mac OS. Not I wouldn't say native apps, but Mac OS apps that basically are alternatives to building them in Swift UI or in UI Kit. So Swift UI and UI Kit are the default ways in iOS and Xcode you build for Mac OS. Uh, Mac Catalyst is kind of a halfway house that you could use a lot of your code that you built your iPhone app in and repurpose that code on a desktop platform. And I haven't looked too closely at what the disadvantages of our Mac, what the disadvantages are of Mac Catalyst. I assume in general these sorts of things have this advantage that you kind of have an extra layer of abstraction and you have generally less performance. So if you can, you try to avoid those sorts of halfway houses, and you would build in, like, let's say a Swift UI, or you would build an UI kit. Here we get a Mac Catalyst app that we could run on my App Silicon, sorry, Apple Silicon MacBook Air. So it's an M1 chip that we have running on this device, and I have the option to run it as a under this profile, Apple Silicon. Okay, so let's go ahead and run and debug, and it's going to be firing up. If all goes well, I know that NuGet's going to complain and say that I don't like this, and it's already doing it right now. It's saying, I don't like this. I have Android stuff. I can't load this in the Mac Catalyst. What are we talking? It should work, even though some packages will fail. I'm pretty sure it will work. So there's a bunch of ugly red text, but if the worst comes to worst, I could look at the .NET packages, and I think I could remove the ones that don't work, because I didn't really design this for Mac Catalyst. So this is what it's complaining about, like what I expected, which is that it's saying that I'm not really supposed to support Mac Catalyst with
that
these
small
so
chunk of
Harf
red.
Buzz native. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do right now is go into my terminal and .NET remove package. So I'm not gonna try to guess what the packages names are. I'm just gonna remove the packages with auto completion. So here, .NET remove package native assets Android, because we're not building an Android app anymore. And then the other native asset was Skia Sharp, I believe. So that this is the other one, and I think I have to remove this. And once I do that, I don't think there's any real difference between how Mac Catalyst will kind of do this and how Android does this. And now I think that we're not going to get the ugly red text. Okay, so this also takes a little bit of time. I told you everything takes everything has a progress bar attached to it. So what it's doing right now, it's bundling my application and it's signing it and running it. It may even tell me that, hey, it's an unidentified developer, and macOS loves telling you that. But we're going to say, yeah, I think I trust this person that's developing MAUI Cast 1. So, and it's building, and it's hopefully going to give me a Mac application. And again, like I said, unfortunately, everything is tied to a progress bar, so there's progress. Okay, so we actually have a actual Mac Catalyst app. It's a complete Mac application. I don't know if it's going to know that so if I click this, it should hit the breakpoint. So let's see. I did hit the breakpoint, which is great. Now the big question is if the rest of this works, and we'll find out live if it does. And it does work, because it's telling me, do you want to share the PDF? So we have a PDF. That's amazing. So
who are you going to share it with?
Well, I'll write a mail, an email, and let's see how this file looks like. So the file is being previewed in my mail client right now, and I think that in my mail client, I honestly don't even know how to zoom in my mail client apparently. But like, again, look at the tiny little text. It actually says hello from the reporting world. I wonder if I can actually zoom. That'd be great. Like, who knows? Like this technology is so far beyond me. I mean, I don't know. I just know I just coded. I don't know how to do anything else with it. But the point is that we actually have the PDF generated in the Mac application. So exciting times. Basically, for free, we got a Mac application. We're building an Android application at the last minute, the switcheroo, without any plans. We just said, hey, why don't we target Mac Catalyst? And we were able to do it. The only proviso was I needed to get rid of those native assets because they don't make sense in Mac OS. I mean, yeah, as you would expect. Anyway,
all right.
I think you got a bonus with that. So
we did, and it worked, which was another bonus.
I know.
I was sweating. I was sweating over here. I was like, and quit while you're ahead.
Yeah, I know, but it's just I saw Nikita and I just got excited. I was like, oh my God, I gotta like showcase what this thing is capable of. I have like all these emulators that .NET Meteor can target. I mean, why shouldn't I be using them? I'm not going to be doing iPhone though, because like the problem is that I don't, things get a little bit more complicated actually when you start like flinging around framework versions and
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe stopping while, or getting out while the getting's good is a good sort of strategy here. So it's kind of
Yes.
amazing that we basically, without any code changes, we're able to support the desktop platform of Mac OS. But my guess is that actually um, there are some native assets I would have to load for iOS, just like I loaded them for Android, and you know, that's again, it's a roll the dice. So it's yeah, we'll get to that, but we will get to that in the context of a fully fledged mobile app where you get a report designer and a document viewer.
All right. All right, everybody. If you haven't followed us yet, please do. Also, you can turn on notifications so that you get notified whenever we're about to go live. Um, Tomorrow, you can join Don and Gregory at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Gregory is building an app with React and DevExpress. It will be DX Cloud Part 2. You can watch DX Cloud Part 1 on our YouTube channel or on our Twitch channel right here. And that is it for this one. Thank you, Areg. As always, a pleasure.
It was fun to be here. I mean, I got to tell the world about Comic Sans. You know, I've got
Comic
to
Shans. It's like,
evangelize.
it's going to drive me insane. All right, that's it. Bye.